The Sofia Gray Show. Hello, listeners and kinky friends. Welcome to the Sofia Gray Show, where we discuss all things sex, kinks, and fetishes. From the sex stories to the latest trends in the erotic world, we talk taboo transparently. This podcast is brought to you by Sofia Gray, the largest used underwear marketplace. I'm Lacey Bloom.
And I'm Tracy Bust.
And today we're joined by sex writer, podcast host, and self-proclaimed sex nerd, Kate Sloan. Welcome to the show, Kate.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, we're so happy to have you here. Yeah. I mean, I feel like from, two podcasters to another, we have, tons to talk about. You have your hand in so many podcasts, I feel like.
I do. I am fingering a lot of podcasts, I guess you could say. I am a professional sex media maker, which is really exciting because that's what I always wanted to do with my life, and now I get to do it.
That's fantastic. Oh, so you've known forever that this was just like your path in life.
Pretty much. Like, I started listening to sex podcasts when I was like 11 or 12, and like I went through different phases of like wanting to do different things, but I just eventually came back to the idea of writing about sex or making media about sex because I had always been just oddly intrigued by it for a small child. Like, I've had therapists subsequently ask me, like, why do you think you were so into sexuality from a young age? Because I guess that could seem like a red flag or something, but I'm just a nerd about sex. I just always have been.
I love that. A sex nerd. I feel like we need more sex nerds in the world.
Yeah.
Well, can you talk about like when you started like first putting out your own podcast and writing about sex, like how you like launched into that?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing that I did was I started my blog. It's called Girly Juice. It still exists today. It's at girlyjuice.net. And that was almost 8 years ago. And I was taking some time off in between high school and university because I'd kind of realized upon graduating from high school, I panicked and realized I didn't know what I wanted to study. Like, I was just going to do this sort of like general humanities program. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to do with that.
What? An 18-year-old who doesn't know what they're going to do with their life? Excuse you.
It's so strange that we're expected to know all that stuff by that age. But so like I took a year off. I did some weird and cool stuff. I like coached an improv team. I did customer service for a catering company. But like somewhere in there, I was like, why don't I just also start a sex blog? Because I like sex. I like writing. I can combine these two things. I can start sex toy reviewing and maybe start getting some free sex toys, which was definitely a perk. And then I ended up getting a journalism degree in which I just like more so honed my focus on writing about sex. And in 2016, I started my podcast, The Dildorks, with my best friend Bex. And just doing a whole bunch of sex media stuff over here.
Which I am a huge fan of, by the way. I've been binging The Dildorks. I am all about that. I love to tell me about you and Bex's relationship, because the two of you, if anybody hasn't listened to The Dildorks, they definitely should check it out. But the two of you have just such amazing chemistry.
Thank you. Yeah, he's definitely one of the closest friends I've ever had. We met in 2015. We were both going to this like sex bloggers retreat that was organized by some friends of ours. It's like we rented a house on the Oregon coastline and just like went and hung out and like skill shared and made glass dildos at a glass blowing studio. Like just did like weird sex blogger summer camp. And me and Bex kind of like sort of had a connection but didn't really talk that much. And then a few months later we attended the same sex conference together here in Toronto called the Playground Conference. And we like spent the whole weekend together and had a threesome together and then just like became pretty much instantly best friends. Like, it was just one of those moments of like, I guess we're best friends now.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a threesome with someone, after, meeting them a couple times, that's clearly the start of a beautiful friendship.
Seals the deal.
Yeah. Well, like, not always, though, is the thing. Like, I've definitely had threesomes with people where it was, like, awkward, or, like, where two of us were focusing mostly on one person and didn't really interact with each other. But this was just a weird threesome where, like, all three of us were making jokes and puns and just, like, being silly together. And so it really kind of, like, fast-tracked our relationship in terms of, like, intimacy and closeness.
I love that. What a beautiful friendship. What a great beginning to a beautiful friendship. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
You've got me thinking now about the thing that stood out to me in that conversation was, glass dildo making. And I'm thinking about how they have all those paint nights and wine and cheese nights. And I'm like, where is the glass dildo blowing night? Like that's the evening I want with friends.
Well, so the story of this is so wild because my friend Epiphra, who's a sex toy reviewer, she was one of the people organizing it. And she had this vision that she like wanted us to do this as one of our activities. And she basically like went to like glass blowing, just like vanilla, like non-sexy glass blowing places in the area where we were going to be staying. And she was like, hey, listen, I have this weird request. Would you consider doing this? And this place, for whatever reason, said yes, and it was paid for by our sponsors who were sponsoring the weekend. And so we got to make glass dildos with people who like were very experienced working with glass, but had probably never made dildos before, which was just delightful. Because like as sex toy reviewers, we were like, okay, can you make it a little curvier? Can you make it a little bigger? And they're like, okay, yes, I physically know how to do that. Are you gonna be able to fit this inside you though? Like, I don't know.
So you all literally made one of a kind, hand blown, custom made dildos.
Yes, I still have mine. It's very beautiful. Mine is like blue and green, and it's curvy. It's kind of S-shaped, and it's huge. And I've for a long time like displayed it in my window because like the light comes through it and is really beautiful. And sometimes somebody comes over to visit me who's never been here before, and it's just like, is that a dildo?
Why, yes, it is. I made it myself.
Yes, I did, sort of.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I think this is something that we need to start. I think there need to be more glass blowing dildo nights.
Yeah, I mean, would you prefer a homemade dildo or store-bought dildo?
I mean, it depends. I have some friends who are sex toy makers. Like my friend Kenton runs a company called Funk It Toys where he makes like handcrafted silicone dildos. And I do have a sense when I use those of like, a human made this with love for me. And it's like, there is something a little bit different about it.
Oh, I love it.
Custom made dildos.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Keep your friends close and your friends who make dildos closer.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So as far as the Dildorks go, what are some of the topics that you and Bex cover on Dildorks? Like just a few of your favorite episodes.
Well, so we were joking recently that like the tagline of our show is dorky discourse on sex, dating, and masturbating. And like actually our show I think is predominantly about kink, at least these days. Because when we started the show, we were both like figuring out how kinky we were and stuff, and now we're both like very publicly kinky.
Love
and,
it.
Like, have done way more perverted shit than we had even dreamed of back then. So like the show's purview has shifted a little bit. We used to talk about kind of more basic things like oral sex and hand jobs and online dating, and like we still do definitely talk about those things, but I feel like now we more so approach it through this lens of like kink as well as like non-monogamy and like social justice and leftist politics. And so like we've just gotten a little bit more complex in our discussions of things. But I think one of my favorite episodes is one that we did about Platonic Kink, as in like doing kink with people who you're not dating or who you're not having sex with necessarily. And this has been like a really important thing in me and Bex's relationship, because like sometimes when we're struggling with our mental health or with a difficult situation in life, we will like dom each other. We will like help each other through a difficult thing by like kind of flexing our kink muscles and just like knowing what the other person needs, because we know each other's sexuality so well. So like Bex, like I sometimes call him dad, because like he's kind of this like kinky, platonic, non-sexual father figure / best friend person. We have a weird relationship.
I mean, but it sounds like a really healthy relationship too. And I bet you both are really focused on each other's needs and who you are and what you like. And you kind of already know a little bit about what works for each of you. So, I mean, I wish I had more friends like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to be friends with a sex nerd and particularly a kink nerd, because like I think by necessity, if you want to be good at sex and kink, you also have to kind of get good at communication.
Amen.
And listening and paying attention to what people want and need. And like those skills all are transferable to non-sexual relationships. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk about like the cross section between like using kink as in terms of like both like physical health and mental health, how like kink can be like useful in terms of like coping and treating?
Oh, yeah, sure. This is actually like one of my favorite topics, and I could do an entire podcast on this topic.
Well, that'll be round 2. We'll bring you back for more.
Yeah, absolutely. But so like I am a person who has depression and anxiety as well as chronic pain. And kink has helped me with all of those things. There's a lot of reasons for this, both physical and mental. Some of the big like physical reasons are like the same reasons why it might be helpful to your mental health to exercise. There's endorphins, there's adrenaline, there's a sense of like achieving something or completing something. If you take a really heavy spanking for someone that you love and care about and want to impress, then maybe there's a similar feeling to if you like complete a marathon or something like that. And then like more emotionally or psychologically, like I'm in a 24/7 DS relationship. So like my dominant helps me with my workflow. It keeps an eye on my to-do list every day, gives me rewards or sometimes punishments depending on how much I'm getting done, and also reminds me to take care of myself and to be gentle and kind to myself when I need that. And so it's in some ways a similar type of guidance and love to what you might get from a vanilla relationship, but there's just this added element on top of it that works really well for me. And I know a lot of people for whom that's true, for whom kink has been like really transformative for their brains and their lives.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I feel like something we've asked a few of our other guests has been sort of, how do you surround yourself with people that are supportive in this kink community? How do you find partners? How do you, experiment with new kinks in a safe and healthy way?
That's a really big question. I get asked a lot actually for advice on like specifically how to find kink partners.
Yeah, we do too.
Yeah, and it's really tricky for me actually because I have had the best luck with Twitter. Like I met Bex on Twitter. I met my partner Matt on Twitter. I've met several of my past partners on Twitter. And it's weird because like it's not a dating site. It's not supposed to be a dating site. But there is something about it where like you can get to know someone slowly over time, through these little bite-sized chunks of like what they've decided to express as being important to their personality and what they're up to. So in some ways, it feels to me more organic than the way that you can get to know someone on a dating site or a hookup app or whatever. Because on those platforms, people are very much presenting themselves with the intention of like, how can I appear attractive and dateable and desirable to the people I'm looking for? Whereas on Twitter, like obviously there are people posturing and there are people being inauthentic in many ways, as they are anywhere in the world, but like I do feel like you get a little bit more of like an authentic slice of someone and what they're into, and when you strike up a conversation with someone, it's less like aggressively like I am trying to date you or fuck you, the way it can come across on a dating site or hookup app.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and I feel like just in terms of social media, everyone has this idea that Instagram is the one that's used to slide into someone's DMs. and I think that's very true, but I think you're right. I've also found Twitter to be a great platform for different niche communities. So I know that it's got a huge community for writers. It's huge as far as the podcasting community goes. So that makes actual perfect sense to me that would also work for the kink community.
Yeah, and there used to be a lot of big kink communities on Tumblr. I mean, I know tons of people who like found their people on Tumblr, and Tumblr, as I'm sure you know, has like changed their rules about porn, and so like there are some communities that can get by without stuff that might be visually identifiable as porn. Like I'm thinking of like the erotic hypnosis community, which is something that I'm involved in. Like a lot of their erotic materials are audio or text based, so they can still theoretically survive there. But it's not really fun to be trying to be sexy in an environment that like actively does not want you to be sexy. So I've seen a lot of people migrating over to Twitter for stuff like that.
Yeah. I think we all mourned the loss of Tumblr when that happened. But yeah, no, I have noticed that of all things that have kind of stood the test of time on Tumblr, it's been audio porn. That's definitely the one that I'm seeing still pop up even recently.
Yeah, I love audio porn. Like, if there's not audio in, like, regular video porn that I'm watching, I might as well not be watching it. Like, audio is just so key to my enjoyment. So, yeah, big fan.
Me too.
It's a love language.
Yeah.
Words. What advice do you have for people and couples who want to introduce kink into their sex lives?
Well, okay, so I did just finish writing a book that's like a kink introduction.
Oh, cool.
Congratulations.
It's not going to be out until March 2021 though, which is really a bummer because I keep wanting to recommend it to people because I just finished it and I'm proud of it. But it's going to be called 101 Kinky Things That Even You Can Do. And I mean, when it comes out in over a year, it'll be a really great primer for this sort of thing. But for the time being, I would recommend finding a yes, no, maybe list. My friend Bex has one on his website at bextalksex.com. If you search yes, no, maybe, he has this really, really great, I think it's a PDF. And basically what you do with this activity is you and your partner together make lists of like which kinky things you are definitely into and definitely want to try, or you're like curious about and like maybe want to try, but you want to like talk about it more, learn more about it, and then things that you definitely don't want to do. And you can kind of compare lists and then have conversations about anything that comes up that is matching. And then look into like instructional materials if necessary about how to do those things. So like I really love kinkacademy.com for learning actual practical kink skills, like how to throw a flogger or whatever you're trying to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and obviously they can follow blogs like your own. They can listen to podcasts. I know you have another podcast as well called The Question Box Show. You want to tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, sure. I was about to say Question Box is the less sexy one, but it is still pretty sexy. It's I started Question Box with my friend Brent Black, who is he's like a news podcaster and like a video game music guy and a musical theater composer. So he's kind of like not of the sex world, except that he's sort of this closeted sex nerd, which is one of the main reasons why we connected and like became friends really quickly. And so he had this idea to start this game show. We call Question Box the game show podcast of shockingly personal questions. So I'm the referee usually. Sometimes we switch it up, but I'm usually the ref. And so I ask both Brent and a guest a series of like really personal, probing, vulnerable questions in categories like sex, family, feelings, bodies, relationships, just like stuff that people are a little uncomfortable talking about. And we assign points based on the answers. And it just is sort of this fun framing to get people to talk about things that we don't get to have enough conversations about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the main things that we don't have enough conversations about is what goes on behind closed bedroom doors. Like,
yes,
that's the beauty of kinks, is that we, I shouldn't say the beauty of kinks. It's one of the things I think that hinders kinks is that, it's not a public discussion, and it should be. So I'm so thankful to have you here and to have, these podcasts that you've created and your blog and everything, and you're putting it out there and waving that sex nerd flag high. So thank you for that.
I mean, I think this is an excellent segue into like our topic today, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is pubic hair.
I thought it was so funny that you asked me to talk about pubic hair because despite me being like a fairly sexually experienced person, and I have tried some weird shit, this is one of the few topics that I have actually very little personal experience with because I have literally removed my pubic hair since it grew in.
Well, interesting. I mean, that's the perfect way to start then. And how refreshing you get to be, a little newbie in like this, area of discussion. I love it. It's always fun to learn new things, right? We always talk about how sexy learning is on this podcast. So we're nerds ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, I've encountered a lot of other people's pubic hair, and I don't dislike it. It's just like on myself, I don't like it. And like the longest I've ever grown it out, I think was about like 5 or 6 weeks when I was about to get it waxed. And after getting it waxed a few times, I like switched back to shaving because I was like, the point of hair removal is I don't want to have hair, and you have to grow out the hair in between waxing. And I don't want the hair. That's the point.
No, perfect. Okay, I mean, you're already diving right into my discussion because I was going to ask each of you, where do we land on pubic hair? Like, where do we land on it?
I jumped the gun. I just had a lot of feelings about pubic hair.
You let those feelings go. I mean, I am happy to hear your feelings about it. So, I mean, it sounds like, Kate, that you know, like you said, from the very beginning of it just growing in, you tried the waxing and kind of realized, oh, I'm just going to shave it instead. And I'm with you. I prefer shaving over waxing, but that's kind of, I prefer anything over waxing.
Yeah, I shave too. I'm a shaver or a trimmer. I trim.
Yeah, a trimmer for sure. But how do we also feel about it for partners? Like, I mean, do you ever think about having a preference as far as your partners go for their pubic hair?
I mean, it doesn't bother me so much, but what does bother me is when hairs get in my mouth, like they come off and then they're just in my mouth bugging me. And like, I consider myself kind of a blowjob aficionado, and so like when I'm giving head, I really want to be able to focus on it and do a good job. And if there's like a hair stabbing me in the tongue, then I find that distracting. But in terms of like aesthetic preference or tactile preference overall, like I know a lot of people have strong feelings about that, and I don't especially. I like a trimmed situation. And I gave a rim job for the first time recently, and I was like, I feel like I would like this about, 22% more if there was less hair here. But I don't know. I don't feel super strongly about it.
Okay, well, and I appreciate that. What do you think, Tracy?
I mean, I am the same. Like, you know, God, I always feel bad like when I'm like someone's balls are in my mouth, and then when I'm done, I like pull hair out of my teeth, and I'm like, I don't want them to like. I'm like, hair is hair. I want to be like, hey, whatever you're comfortable with, and yeah, and just like for me, accepting like on occasion, there might be a hair in between my teeth, and vice versa, and it's just like one of. Not everything is sex. Do you know what I mean? Not sex isn't sexy all the time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know. Let's talk about the mess that comes with sex for sure. But yeah, and you know what I have to say too is it's something that, as for me, I prefer to not be naked down there. I prefer to have a little bit of hair.
Yeah.
I will say I do love the feeling of like a freshly shaved vulva. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, it does feel amazing. It's for me, the reason I feel like I don't keep it shaved completely is that I don't, well, first of all, maintenance. I'm such a lazy ass person. And then secondly, that there's just, I don't like the feeling of it growing back in. Like it gets very bumpy. At least for me personally, and a little itchy sometimes. So so I'm always caught in the middle of like I'm either gonna be like shaving it completely bald or I'm gonna have like full bush. So I go through like different waves of like where I land with my pubic hair, and I never want to like criticize a partner for their pubic hair just because I wouldn't want to have it for me. So I guess that's what is one of my biggest turnoffs too, is like if I have, because I have had like partners before be like, oh, like you should really trim it up down there.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
I know. And I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Who says that?
Exactly. White men. Heterosexual white men.
That's awful. I'm not a fan of that at all.
So I mean, I feel like that's been sort of the general consensus that I've got from doing some of this research is that it does seem like, especially when just talking about heterosexual couples, that women are much more likely to shave themselves, wax themselves, and do so either for their benefit or also for their male partners. Whereas male partners seem a little less inclined and definitely a lot less pressured to groom or shave themselves for their partners specifically.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, men shave, they shave less than women. Like they're allowed to have more hair like in our society, which is terrible.
Gosh, I know. And you know what? We're going to talk a little bit about sort of where these like kind of hair beauty standards come from. Because you know what's interesting about pubic hair is I feel like everyone has very strong opinions on pubic hair. Like, and we all land in different areas of the spectrum on it. But at the same time, people don't really like talking about pubic hair, which just cracks me up that it's like you have these strong opinions about it, but you won't actually talk about them unless you're like in the bedroom. So we are going to talk about all of it today. And I figured the best way to get some of our facts and crap about pubic hair out in the world is to play a round of fact or crap. So,
Okay, let's do it.
yeah, I love it. Kate and Tracy, I'm going to read you guys some statements.
Okay.
And these are either fact or crap about pubic hair, the history of pubic hair, the styling of pubic hair. I've got a couple studies in here. Thank you, Cosmopolitan. And we will go from there. So, number 1. Being into pubes is actually its own fetish.
Fact.
I mean, so I'm being a kink nerd, and I'm gonna be a little bit of just have a nuanced take on this, which is like I think it's often part of some fetishes. Like I know some people who are like really into like sweat fetish, and that's like entangled with pubic hair for them, or people who are into like being smothered and they're into pubes as part of that. I guess like my overall answer is like, yes, this is definitely true, but I just have some quibbles with the
Sure. Yeah. So it is fact, there is actually a specific fetish that is getting turned on by seeing or thinking of pubic hair called, anyone, pubephilia.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but they do, Kate's right, they do actually rule it as a type of hair fetishism, which is called trichophilia. So, and that can include, types of hair, head of hair, armpit hair, chest hair, even fur. People might have a preference for the color, the texture, the hair length. So, and you know what's interesting too about this one is I know when people talk about kinks and fetishes, a lot of people always wonder why does that turn you on? Why are you into that? And they usually don't have a rhyme or reason to them. But there are some beliefs that there might actually be a scientific reason that people do like pubic hair. And it's that the idea that hair releases pheromones and that there are chemicals that, make humans feel happy from pheromones, and that might be something that they're attracted to because of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it raises an interesting question about like how sometimes our basal kind of like evolutionary desires and turn-ons are at odds with what we learn as a turn-on from media, like mainstream porn, etc. And like I think for some of us, one of those wins out over the other. And for others of us, there might just be this like interesting internal conflict, which I actually think can be a really like sexy and like erotically intriguing sensation for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, number 2, you're both doing so well already.
Okay.
Number 2, the removal of pubic hair dates back to the Middle Ages.
I think it dates back earlier than that, would be my guess.
I'm with you on that. I'm just thinking of that in Outlander. There's that part where she shaves her pubic hair and he's like, "Your honeypot." Like, what happened to your honeypot?
The things you learn on Outlander.
I know. Yeah, and other things. I think, yeah, it's been around forever.
Yeah, no, you are both correct. It is crap. The removal of pubic hair goes back even further. There's traces of it from the ancient Egyptians who thought pubic hair was, uncivilized.
I really wanted you to say dinosaurs have been known to shave their pubic hair. That would have been amazing.
Oh gosh, yeah. You remember back in the Stone Age when we just kind of took a rock, shaved it all off.
That's why they went extinct, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and so, but really, I mean, when the Egyptians, they seem to be kind of like the ones who sort of, at least from our records, kind of started removing it, using razors made of flint or bronze. Ouch.
Yikes.
And also using a method called sugaring, which I know that you can actually still get done at waxing salons today.
Yeah.
So those Egyptians, man, they think of
knew it.
everything.
Yeah.
Ancient Greeks apparently also weren't into pubes. I don't think they were into anything personally. So it sounds like the way they did it was they actually removed like each hair individually with tweezers.
Oh God.
I've done that actually. Like I've found it therapeutic on occasion. I mean, I know that some people have like plucking their hairs as like some kind of coping mechanism, and
I have that
disorder.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, sometimes when I need to calm down, I'll just like sit there with my tweezers and like listen to a podcast. Maybe it's because I'm kinky and I'm a masochist, but
you're like, I gotta be doing something.
Yeah.
I do like that from the research I did, Queen Elizabeth I, what a boss. She did not remove her pubic hair, which apparently set the fashion for a long time to keep your bush.
How did that?
Why did
how
they
do we
know about that though?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
Wasn't
did that happen?
Wasn't she the Virgin Queen?
Yeah, but like, how is it just like, oh, like, hear ye, the
I don't
queen
know.
doesn't shave her bush, no one else shall. Like, what? Like, what text is that?
I don't know, but she was such an influence. Like, I feel like if there were a woman to like inspire generations not to shave, it would be Queen Elizabeth.
Totally. Yeah, I just want to know what law, where on the crown jewels
They
that
put it on
memo is
paper.
in. Yeah.
Okay. Moving into more modern times. Number 3, razors weren't marketed to women in the United States until 1915.
True or
Yeah,
fact?
I believe that.
It is fact. And it's funny to think about it that way because that really means that hair removal for women, at least in this country, has only really been a part of our culture for like the last 100 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's so funny because I always do think about whenever I see like a period film or read a romance, you know, that's set in a different time that, you know, oh, how are they shaving their legs? They weren't.
Yeah, because they were wearing like long clothes and stuff.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
now it makes sense. Guys, my brain's working today, just so you know.
Yeah. Well, and Gillette is who we have to blame because they realized they could make double the money if they marketed to women as well as men. And they were specifically targeting armpit and leg hair in ads and adding to that a nylon shortage from the war, you know, when
Yes.
we actually have to start showing our legs.
Yeah.
And that's when the razors started flying off the shelves. So thanks, Gillette.
Yeah.
The first bikini was created in the 1940s. Fact or crap?
Fact. No, wait.
I mean, I feel like they didn't really like become famous in the public consciousness until later, but I still believe it could have been designed in the 40s.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that like maybe there were like bikini-esque couture, you know, beforehand, but like in terms of like, ladies and gentlemen, this is the bikini, that could be the 1940s.
Right. No, God, you both should have. Did you just write this list?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you did. Yeah, the bikini did come out in the 1940s. It definitely took a while to catch on because of modesty concerns. But once movie stars started wearing them, that became a lot more popular with the general public. And of course, that is sort of when we got this idea that we need to groom down there to avoid our, you know, slip ups at the beach because heaven forbid. So that was actually around the first time that removing some or all of your pubic hair became a major part of at least American culture.
Yeah. Makes sense.
From there, we're moving even further into the future. Brazilian waxes, here they come, gained popularity in the late 90s, largely because of an endorsement from Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh, wow. She was just doing that goop influencer shit even back then. Wow.
Did you guys watch? I watched the first few episodes. It's interesting.
I haven't. I feel like, you know, I'll let you guys, you know what? I'm going to let you guess before I say anything about Gwyneth Paltrow.
I mean, wait, okay, because the first time I heard of Brazilian waxing was an episode of Sex and the City where Carrie
That's
gets
what
it
I
done.
thought. Yeah,
Yes.
that's the first time I remember hearing about it.
Yeah, so maybe Gwyneth Paltrow like falls because it was like when they go to LA, and so
Yeah.
Gwyneth Paltrow is like an LA person, you know, celebrity,
Sure.
whatever. So maybe yes, I'm gonna say yes. Gwyneth Paltrow is like brought forth the Brazilian wax craze.
I mean, I feel like this is probably true, but like, it's surprising to me that Gwyneth Paltrow had that much cultural power
I
at
know.
that
Good
time to
point.
be able to affect such a big change, because that is huge. I mean, some people credit this with like credit mainstream porn, like the industry, the concept of mainstream porn with like popularizing the Brazilian wax, and I feel like mainstream porn has way more power culturally than Gwyneth Paltrow, but I don't know.
You might be right. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Well, and honestly, you're both sort of right in a
Oh,
way
okay.
because it is fact that Gwyneth Paltrow, and this is what I have to say about Gwyneth Paltrow. I feel like she has like a voice or a hand in like anything that's happening. Like not necessarily like I want to listen to Gwyneth Paltrow, but remember, we are talking about 90s Gwyneth.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what's really funny is she came out and said, this is what I'm doing. And a lot of people kind of jumped on the bandwagon.
Wow.
And like Tracy mentioned, another thing that pushed it over the edge was that Sex and the City episode where Carrie does get a Brazilian wax. And but also what Kate's talking about as far as porn goes, in the 80s and 90s started becoming more popular for porn stars to be removing their pubes, if not entirely, at least trimming them down very short. So yeah, absolutely. So it's all kind of in the same time. And I guess one of the reasons that, oh, you know what? I'm taking away one of the questions now. But one of the reasons that they did start removing hair in the 80s, because if you remember like a good old 70s porn, like that was like full bush. Like I love watching old porn. It cracks me up. I love it.
You watch it for the giggles.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, the fashion, oh, the hair, oh, the pubes. I love it all.
Like, oh yeah, this is porn. I forgot. I was just looking at the pube fashion.
Remember the good old days of porn. But yeah, in the 80s, though, they actually started removing hair, a large part because they were concerned about the STDs, especially because of the rise of HIV and AIDS.
Is that true though? Can you get... Do you know what I mean? Like,
oh, I don't think it can be passed.
No, it's transmitted via fluids.
Right.
Yeah.
I think like that, but at the same time, like early in that crisis, there was just not a lot of information out there about like what caused it,
and everyone was
which
scared.
Is part of the reason why it ended up getting like thought of as an exclusively gay disease, because like the information was just extremely lacking, and it allowed people's biases to just creep in and inform how they viewed the disease.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but you're absolutely both right that, you know, we had star. It's hard for me to call Gwyneth Paltrow a star, but you know what? It's the 90s. We had stars like Gwyneth Paltrow and obviously Sex and the City, but we also, you know, people were watching porn as they always have been. But, you know, I mean, it makes sense that they are crediting it a lot more towards mainstream material like Sex and the City and Gwyneth Paltrow, as opposed to porn, which, you know, nobody wants to talk about that they watch, even though we all do it.
Yes.
So moving forward, a 2017 Cosmo survey of people 18 to 35 found that 70% of people undertake some sort of pubic grooming.
70%?
70.
And this
is that women that they have polled, or is it?
It was men and women.
Then I think that seems right.
Yes, because I was going to say if that was women, that seems low to me. But if it's just the general population, that seems about right to me.
So it's actually false. It was 92% of people who said that they undertake some sort of pubic grooming.
Well, yeah, women are more than men. You know, there are more women than men.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, when I saw 92%, I was like, are we just talking about the girls? But no, they were absolutely talking about men and
everyone.
Women.
Yeah.
So, that's not to say that I think they undertake the same amount of pubic grooming.
But that's a good point. Yeah.
But it does seem like, I mean, that survey is only a couple years old. I mean, so they're saying that, you know, nowadays it seems like a good majority of the population, at least in this age range, is, you know, taking care down there in some way.
Yeah.
And so that same survey, here's your next question. That same survey found that 57% of women said they went completely bare.
57% of women?
Yes. So majority of women.
That seems low to me also.
Yeah. But there's a part of me that's like, there's so many women. There's so many people out there who like are like, I don't shave.
Right.
I want to say yes, but I know I'm wrong.
So it sounds like you're going with fact and maybe Kate's going with crap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, it is fact. It was in that. And again, this is one survey, but that survey did find that 57% of women, and we're talking about in this 18 to 35 age range, said that they go completely bare.
Wow.
So, you know, and I'm assuming that means that, you know, for those of them that are saying they're not completely bare, they're either, you know, it could be anywhere from a landing strip to like full bush.
That's what I was thinking. Like, because like sometimes, you know, depending on the haircut, it can look bare, but when it's not, you know, yeah. I'm just,
you said haircut, and now I'm just picturing someone going to like the barber or their stylist.
But like honestly, like sometimes when I'm like trimming, I'm like, what like, I wish I could like go online and be like, this is a style, like, you know, something is a mohawk, something's a bob. Like, I want to know, like, I need a template. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like, I just need to, I want to mix it up.
Add some vajazzle down there too.
Yeah.
Love that.
Braids. Yeah.
Yes. Some braid. You're gonna really have to grow it out for that one.
Listen,
I'll grow it out for braids.
Yeah, I'm committed.
I'll grow it out. Okay, here's your next one, and we're moving into kind of a different side of pubic hair at this point, which is people who don't shave their pubes are less hygienic than people who do.
False.
That's wrong.
Yeah, definitely false.
Absolutely false. And we're going to talk a lot more about sort of the hygiene myths surrounding pubic hair. But yeah, it's just hair. Everyone, well, I won't say everyone, but a good majority of the world has hair all over your body. And it has been proven, you know, pubic hair does grow for a reason. Whether or not you choose to shave it, wax it, or, you know, let it grow out is up to you. Next one, pubic hair increases your chance of getting an STI.
That's false.
It depends on what you're defining. Because I know that, like, it is much harder to get crabs or pubic lice if you don't have any pubic hair. But other than that, I don't know that there is a correlation. And I don't even know if those would be considered an STI, really.
Right. Yeah.
So I do love that you brought up that you did bring up pubic lice or crabs. And if you do have pubes, you are less likely to contract STIs. They actually say that pubes decrease your chances of getting an STI. And that's because bacteria or viruses can get caught in your pubes before they're able to touch your skin or genitals. And if you shower regularly, you know, that's the big if that comes along with it, you will probably be able to contain the issue. So people who have removed pubic hair even once during their lives are actually more likely to contract an STI. This was a specific fact I saw that I was floored by, but people who remove their hair more than 11 times a year, I'm not sure, so once a month, I guess we're going with,
Okay.
are 4 times more likely to get an infection.
Wow.
But I guess that makes sense. Like, you're a little bit more exposed.
Yeah. So it's not like you do. It's just like you're 4 times as exposed.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and they're just saying that in terms of, you know, by having pubic hair there's a chance that if you do catch an infection, you're going to catch it in the hair. And that if you shower, if you take care of your body and everything by, you know, washing it away, you're less likely to actually get it inside of you.
Okay.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting. From 2002, I love this. From 2002 to 2010, so we're talking about the span of 8 years, there were an estimated 5,000 incidents where patients went to the hospital due to pubic grooming.
Oh my God.
Is that like ripping skin off from waxing, or what's going on there?
I know that's a big question that I have as well. Is what are we qualifying as an incident? I mean, I guess it's serious enough that you go to the hospital for.
Like if someone uses bleach and there's like a skin infection, or if something gets up in you.
So
you
if
know
you're
what I mean?
removing it not in a safe way, maybe some sort of cut, like you used a bad razor or something, but infection maybe.
I'm gonna say true.
Yeah, that seems plausible to me.
So it is crap, and the reason it's crap is because there were an estimated 11,000 incidents
oh my God.
during that time span where patients went to the hospital.
That's okay.
Because of pubic grooming.
Like the thing is I'm like, oh my God. But the thing is, I've gone to the hospital for dumb shit too.
Oh,
it's just not pubic grooming. So who am I to judge?
They have that show, Sex Sent Me to the ER for a reason.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I guess I think one of the things they were talking about in that study as well was that a good chunk of women who removed their hair themselves reported ingrown hairs and general discomfort. So I like to assume that a good majority, maybe not, but at least a group of people who went in maybe didn't have like a major problem. It was just a discomfort of how do I make this better?
Yeah.
You turn to YouTube is my advice. Google is your friend. Although Google can also make you think you have cancer. So there is that too.
It's a dicey one.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Okay. A Cosmos survey found that over 60% of men say they spend absolutely no money when it comes to hair removal.
That seems too low.
You mean pubic hair removal or hair removal?
Specifically pubic hair removal.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, like, men are definitely buying razors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because, like, you already have scissors. So,
fair
I mean,
enough,
what's there to spend money on, I guess?
Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah, good point.
It's fact. It's a
okay.
good majority of men said that they don't spend any money when it comes to pubic hair removal because most of the time they do it themselves.
Got it. Yeah. Okay,
if they do it at all.
Yeah.
So, and then by comparison, over 55% of women say they spend between $1 and $20 a month as far as hair removal supplies go, which I actually thought sounded really low considering like how much it costs to like go get a wax.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a lot more expensive if you're waxing. If you're shaving, I totally understand that estimate though.
Yeah.
How about, and Kate, you might know a little bit more about this, removing someone else's pubic hair can be part of BDSM.
Yes, I have done it.
Absolutely. Do you want to share any experience you have with that?
Yeah, so my main experience of like erotic shaving is having my legs shaved by someone.
I love that.
But I also have had my pubes shaved by a partner before, and it's kind of like there's a subset of kink activities called fear play, which is what it sounds like. You're playing with fear. And I've done fear play that involved like knives, like someone like pretending that they might stab me or cut me with a knife as a way of kind of activating that like adrenaline response that it can be very sexy and kinky. And there's something about being shaved by a partner that is like a smaller version of that because it does require such trust. And I am very aware that like this person could very seriously hurt me, and they're aware of that too. And so it's just this like very vulnerable activity involving trust. And in the case of like when someone shaved my legs for me, I was actually on my way to a date with a different partner. So it was this extra added layer of like nice like polyamory feelings of like this person wants me to look great for my date.
I love that. Yeah. Well, and I mean, we talked about it earlier, but I think as far as, you know, kink and fetish go, or, you know, really just sex between any partners is that, you know, there is this massive level of communication and a massive level of trust involved. And I think, you know, erotic shaving can definitely be a great way to, you know, showcase your trust with another partner. So that sounds saucy. I love that. Oh, I could get on board with that for sure. Okay. So my final question for you both is all about the Merkin.
Yeah. Okay.
Good old Merkin. So before I, you know, give you your question, just for anybody listening that's unfamiliar, Merkins, you know, besides being a funny name, are considered pubic wigs worn by people with vaginas. So, you know, it really is, I consider it the toupee of the
poussé toupee.
The poussé toupee. So let's talk about that poussé toupee. And the Merkin dates back to the 15th century. Fact or crap?
I think that's right because now I'm thinking, I feel like I've heard about the ancient Egyptians using them too, but I also know that they were used in, I believe, Shakespearean plays sometimes for comedic effect.
Whoa.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I get that. What do you think?
I think, yes, it dates back.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? As far as I know, I don't have any knowledge of the Egyptians with their Merkins, but, you know, we do know that Egypt gives us a lot of fabulous things.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't knock it. But as far as my knowledge and research goes, Merkins do date back to the 15th century, around like 1450. And they were invented for originally for medical and sanitary reasons, because if you got crabs or pubic lice, the only real treatment then was just to shave off your whole bush.
Yeah.
And because it wasn't in fashion at that time, they created something to, slap on top.
Wow.
So that's sort of how the Merkin was born.
That's
but
very interesting.
there has been traces of them using Merkins in plays, like Kate said.
Yeah, Elizabeth I. Maybe she was.
Yeah, maybe she did shave and no one knew,
Yeah.
and she just wore a Merkin. There also is a history of Merkins being used by sex workers because the hair pieces would allow them to cover up marks created by STIs and like syphilis. And so if they had diseases, I'm like, again, channeling like major Les Mis vibes here right now.
Okay, yeah.
If they had diseases and, clients could see them on them, they wouldn't, want
Right.
their services.
Right.
Yeah.
So they would use the Merkins to cover up. And nowadays, I feel like, taking into account how they were used in like Shakespeare plays and everything, I feel like the most modern use of the Merkins is actresses use them a lot when they're playing a role in a period piece and they don't have pubic hair.
Yeah, that's what I always thought they were for.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if you want to make it look time period appropriate,
Yeah.
you just slap a toupee on that poussey. So yeah, that's about how it goes with the Merkin. But yes, wonderful. I think you both got A+ on your
Yay.
your official sex nerds in my book. Oh gosh. Yeah, so I will say whether or not you decide to shave, wax, let it all grow free. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, your pubic hair is a part of you. You have complete control over it.
Yep.
I think it is fun, this idea of, maybe shaving with a partner, having your partner shave you or you shaving them. I think that can be a really exciting thing to experience with a partner. But, at the same time, I'd like to encourage everyone to, take care of themselves, make sure they're communicating what they want and don't want. And if you want to let it grow and braid it like Tracy and I do,
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, so Kate, my final question for you is, where can everyone find you and your amazing work out there in the universe?
So the place where I am most often is Twitter. My handle there is girly_juice, because my blog is called Girly Juice, as in vaginal fluids.
Yes.
Or the sexual fluids of any woman identifying person. Mine are vaginal fluids. So yeah, my blog is at girlyjuice.net. I am girly_juice on Twitter and Instagram. The two podcasts I co-host are called The Dildorks and Question Box. And I also write for various publications. You can find some of my journalism and columns and whatnot at katewritesaboutssex.com.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what's coming up next on the podcast. And,
And your book. I'm excited about your book. I'm going to be counting down the days.
yeah, we just have to wait a year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll do it. We're waiting.
Yeah, let the countdown begin.
There is a chapter about shaving in there, so...
Perfect. Perfect. See, now you're going to have to go and write a follow-up book with all of your, vast information that you now hold.
Yeah, this was very educational.
That's what we're always going for here at Sofia Gray.
Whether you're looking to buy or sell used panties, Sofia Gray has got you covered. If you want to earn some extra cash, you can set up your own shop in minutes and start selling your own used underwear. And they take no commission. You'll keep 100% of every single sale that you make.
So if you've got a kink for used panties and you're looking to buy your next pair, look no further. And the whole process is completely anonymous. Sofia Gray will never share, store, or archive your personal information. The name Sofia Gray won't even appear on your bank receipt.
So head on over to sofiagray.com to start selling or buying used panties now. Until next time, we're your hosts, Tracy Bust
And Lacey Bloom.
and we're here to say, let them be kinky. There's no kink shaming here.